Okay, welcome everybody. Freetrail's coverage of the 2025 Hardrock 100, broadcasting from the heart of Silverton. In fact, just a block basically from the start and finish line. One of North America's oldest, most iconic, hardest 100-mile races taking place starting Friday morning at 6 a.m. Mountain Time. My name is Dylan Bowman, joined by a very special duo of co-hosts, including a participant in this weekend's race, Hilary Yang. Hilary, nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Good to be here.
Yeah, and of course next to you, your partner in crime, and as I understand it, a love that was born here in Silverton, your husband, Billy Yang. Billy, nice to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too. I feel like we just saw each other in a matter of a couple of days, but it's good to be here. And as you said, Silverton has a very, very special place in both of our hearts.
Yeah. Okay, so before we launch into a couple housekeeping items, thank you to North Face for their support of our coverage here throughout race weekend. Thank you to the team behind the scenes, Ryan Thrower, Harmony Bowman. Subscribe to the channel, please, while you're here, and also go play fantasy. Pick 5 deep, fantasy.freetrail.com. We've got a hot pair of, I think, North Face shoes on the line, right, Harmony? Yep, we got a hot pair of Vective Endurus 4s on the line for the winner of the Hardrock Fantasy Prediction Contest, fantasy.freetrail.com. This is sort of our pre-race show, so we're just going to kind of set the scene for the weekend, talk about the course, the conditions, some of the athletes who we're expecting to perform well. We'll get sort of a pre-race interview with Hilary and generally just banter about this amazing event. Launching into it, maybe we start with how are we all feeling recovering from Western States? Because all three of us put in ultra marathons worth of effort, and here we are in Silverton, whatever it is, 10 days later.
Is that all it is?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, you can see the sort of look on our faces of like, here we go again. Yeah, I mean, we bombed out here last week trying to get out as early as possible. But even that, like we made it out on Friday with a 13-and-a-half-hour drive from LA because I was like, I have to sleep at altitude. But man, it's been a whirlwind. Yeah, it's good to be out here, though. We've been out camping for the last week.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it before we went live. I would have appreciated just like one more week in between Western States and Hardrock. I'm sure you guys would too, but it is what it is, and it's turning out to be like pretty beautiful. Like I think timing-wise, like the weather is looking very favorable and pleasant for us spectators and media people, so stoked about that.
It does feel like the season is compressing in a lot of ways. Some years Hardrock is 3 weeks after Western States. Some years it's 2. I'm not entirely sure how that decision is made and when. But
who do we need to talk to?
Yeah, this year, of course, it's really only 13 days. It's not even 2 weeks. And really, for those of us who are around until the end of Western States, it's more like 12 days.
Badwater, too, just happened. They were just wrapping up, and I have a project going on there. So it was just like, what is going on? Yeah. Like,
anyway,
but we're not going to complain.
Yeah,
like we lead a very privileged life.
Hilary actually has to run the race. Billy and I guess you're going to have a hard job of, shepherding.
You'll do a lot of running.
Loop, but I'm just sitting in the chair all week and still complaining about it. Anyway, moving on. Maybe let's start with our personal histories here at the race. Billy, let's start with you. You've made at least a couple memorable films here at Hardrock. Share a little bit about when Hardrock came into your creative process and what it's meant to you in your career.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to the first time I was here was, I think, 2016 with Timmy Olsen and fam. And I think at that point, it was Hardrock was just like this thing that, lived somewhere in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, but never really had a excuse to go. And then I think it was Bob Loomis, Bob Loomis, Timmy's father-in-law. He was scheming up a video project that he was going to produce and kind of brought me on as an extra hired hand. So yeah, I came out and kind of took over the project from Bob, and we made a film about Timmy Olsen, and instantly I was captivated by the San Juans. Like, how can you not? It's so freaking otherworldly. It's just like the only other place that even comes to mind is, obviously the Mont Blanc and the beautiful views, stunning vistas over there. But Hardrock, the San Juans instantly captured my heart, and then the following year I came back, and I feel like I've COVID aside, I've come back virtually every year since, and it's been, it's just like a annual reunion of like decompressing a bit post States, but also like celebrating just our love for the mountains, like pure love for the mountains. And that's what Silverton and this race means to me.
Hilary, we were just talking about how you and I met at Hardrock 2021. I was getting my pre-race photograph taken, and I recall you saying to me, "Hey, I'm Hilary. I'm from Canada. Howie Stern is like, this is his job, but he had to step out, so I'm going to take your photo." And anyway, here we are 4 years later, co-hosting a show together. You guys are now married, and I understand it was
a few things have happened in between there. Yeah, it's crazy. Hardrock, similar to Billy, I think it always just like lived in the ether of the pinnacle of the mountain running side of the sport. And being from Canada, I always like looked at all these U.S. races like, oh my gosh, this is the big leagues, and started putting in 2016 after I did my first 100-miler. Actually, it was 120 miles, Fat Dog 120, and started coming down here. Actually, 2021 was my first year coming down, Dylan, and that's because I helped do some of the design for the awards and the finisher posters that year, and wanted to come down and check it out. COVID had happened, the borders had reopened, so I was like, heck yeah, I'm going to Silverton, and just sort of threw myself into the whole world, and actually ended up pacing the last 18 miles that first year. Mike Wardian cornered me in the grocery store in Silverton like 3 days before the race, and he's like, "Hilary," and I knew Mike from the Coastal Challenge down in Costa Rica and stuff, and he goes, "Hilary, I heard you're really fit right now. I heard you've been at altitude. I need a pacer for the last 18 miles. And I was just sort of like, this is my first time here, like, okay, not knowing anything about what the course looked like or what that would entail. And then, that was also, the year that Billy and I kind of connected, and just sitting in Silverton minding my own business, and Billy walks down the street, and just sort of all these things converged in 2021. It was a busy year.
Amazing. And Wardian's back this year.
I know. I feel like I paced him twice.
He can't corner you this year.
I know. He actually messaged me. He's like, "Oh man, I'm bummed. I'm losing my pacer." But maybe we'll end up sharing some miles. Unlikely, but
I have a good memory of Wardian too. I think it was in 2021. He ran that year also. Yeah, because you paced him. And I came back to the finish line for Golden Hour. I had finished early, the morning before. And Wardian was in the gym washing dishes, and he had finished in 36 hours, right? So he had basically not slept, and he was doing volunteer work for the organization, which I think maybe leads to a good conversation about just like scene setting. For the people who've never been to Hardrock, it's hard for any of us to describe, but it is different, right? And especially for us three, having just come from Western states, having experienced UTMB, we've actually talked about it like with Katie and Germain today about like how Hardrock occupies this very important pinnacle space in the sport. But like in town here, one of the examples that we used today was like Katie Schide could walk through the center of town and not get, assaulted for selfies nonstop. So with that as a prompt, I'd love for you to maybe both just kind of share a little bit of the scene setting here for those who've never been to Silverton about like, what is the Hardrock feeling? What makes it special?
I mean, I think the thing for me that I've realized is that it's one of the few races where you come up quite early, right? And just the altitude means you have to be here early. So it's sort of unique. Like people are out here for 2 weeks, 3 weeks or whatever. A lot of people camp or they're just sort of out on the course. We ran into Katie Schide our first day out on the trails, just sort of casually floating up Green Mountain. Just that sort of sense of like it's a chill community and everybody's just out here being part of the land and trying to acclimate as best as you can. And yeah, like you were saying, Katie can walk down the street. I know Francois Dehane loves the fact that he can come into town and grab a beer and, like you can't do that at UTMB. You can't do that at Western States. And so there is sort of this like feeling like it's in many ways a very growing sport and there's a lot of sort of like, all the excitement around it, but you come here and everyone's sort of on the same playing field in a lot of ways, right?
And Francois tried to have a beer within a 100-mile radius of Chamonix. He would,
right? Yeah, only in disguise.
Yeah, and even I think it was 2017 when I saw Killian over at a coffee shop, and I was just like, "Oh my God, there's Killian." But something about the vibes of Silverton was like, you don't need to shove a camera in his face or ask for a selfie. And yeah, I think Silverton is and Hardrock Week is just a good reset, I feel like, in between these two massive international events that is UTMB and Western States. And it's just, kind of brings us back and centers us to why we love this damn sport so much, and it's why Killian used to keep coming back, because you get all the grandeur of the French and Italian Alps, or wherever, but without the cameras and it's a hard place to get to.
Yeah,
it's not an easy place to get to. The $1 Million Highway will make anyone's pucker up. But I do think a reset, especially after the glorious cacophony that is Western States, it does we're just here camping and chilling and bathing in rivers and just, dirtbag life through and through. We're freaking out because we have an opportunity to charge our phones, we have power or running water, the tiny things that you take for granted, but also just the things that you appreciate about our sport, which is just our love of the mountains, very simply. And that's what Hardrock means for me.
It's been fun. We're camping out with Zach Miller and his bus out in Cunningham, and he's been cooking for everyone. He made me oatmeal this morning. They've been making tacos. He's racing too, and he's planning on camping right up until the race. I love it.
It's perfect and very well said from both of you. Just the fact or the idea that it's a kind of a palate cleanser in between these two bigger events, Western States and UTMB. And it's not like Hardrock's smaller in terms of its global stature, but it's smaller just in its physical presence. I mean, even the town of Silverton, there's a natural constraint as to how many people can actually live and stay here. I mean, obviously there's a lot of people who camp around here in the summertime, but there's only a few hotels. There's not many Airbnbs.
I was on it. When she got in at the lottery, I was making rezos on Silverton because, there's only so much capacity.
Yeah. So to our viewers and listeners, obviously for a lot of people, it's a multi-year, it's a decade, maybe more than that journey to get into the Hardrock 100, but coming out to experience it, it really is a worthwhile trip to make eventually. Speaking a bit about the course now, our trusty producer Ryan's going to pull up a graphic here that our audience will be able to see. You guys obviously can't, but basically what it is a screenshot of the loop and of the counterclockwise course profile. Tossing it to you first here, Hilary, setting the stage for what the runners are going to confront this weekend, including yourself. How are you thinking about the Hardrock course, specifically in the counterclockwise direction, things that you're excited about, things that you're nervous about, etc.?
Yeah, I'm kind of glad I get the counterclockwise direction because it's the only way I've paced. And so I feel psychologically I know the last 18 miles. But for us being out at Cunningham, we're sort of sitting at mile 9 of the course. And you get this nice kind of gradual climb up to the top of Little Giant and then a steep shoot down to the bottom of Cunningham Gulch for the first crew stop. And you have to get your feet wet. I did go up and down the creek looking for ways to not get my feet wet, but have not found that yet. It's kind of annoying because it's only ankle deep water. Yeah. But anyways, so that's for me sort of okay, do I change shoes? How do I kind of manage that early on in the race? And then you go right up the other side and it's you look at these cliffs and it doesn't look like there's a trail there. Yep. It's sort of do mountain goats even go there? And, you somehow this trail meanders up to the top of Green Mountain. The wildflowers are popping. We went up there on our first day and it's just stunning. But then you get up to Stony Gulch, and I know Billy's going to try to get our Subaru up there on race day to see me, but that's just a cool spot. And then, you're sort of going up from there. I think the big looming thing is handies, right? Yeah. Whatever direction you're doing it in, whether it's the beginning or the end of the course, 14,000 feet and change. I don't know the exact. Do you know the exact number?
I don't, but Rye just pulled it back up. Before we get to handies, the section that you were just mentioning after Maggie Gulch, which is sort of the stony area where Billy will hopefully come and find you, is the Pole Creek section. I feel like this is an important thing to mention to the audience in terms of just articulating the Hardrock course and the various sections. The high section that our audience sees, to the left of the high point on the course, which is handies, is what we call Pole Creek. And it's a 19-mile stretch where it's the most runnable section of the whole course, but you're also above 11,000 feet for 19 full miles. Then you drop down to Sherman, which is a very remote aid station that most people won't have crew at. And then you climb up handies. And what you and I were talking about before we got started is that handies in this direction comes early in the race, which has a very specific kind of I don't know, consequence to it, but you could say more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Pool Creek section for sure, I'm interested to see how I feel. I think a lot of people, that'll be the first litmus test of like nutrition, especially for me. I've never been so focused on my nutrition as I am at this race. And I think if you're not eating and drinking well through there, or if you're trying to go too fast and you lose your handle on your nutrition, like that's going to just hit you later on in the race really hard. So that section, and I also heard there's some creek crossings through there. You're going to get a little wet, but there's like lots of water sources. So it's sort of an interesting thing because I think the decisions that you make through that section will impact the race later. Yep. And like you said, a lot of people don't have crew up at Sherman because it's so remote. So I'm doing a drop bag. I think a lot of people are doing a drop bags. Yeah. And then I just have to follow all the instructions I've written to myself. You will eat this many calories. But yeah, going up to Handies, I mean, I am glad it's early in the race because I think for me, my biggest fear out here, and I've been through a couple lightning storms up here, is the lightning. And you tend to get that later in the afternoon, like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, if you're going to get a thunderstorm here. Yeah. And so I'm certainly hoping to be well on my way up there and hopefully over. It doesn't look like the forecast is like
we'll get to that in a sec.
Yeah. You can tell me so I know what I'm in for. But yeah, I think that's just like in everyone's minds. I mean, when I paced Mike in 2021, Handies was a huge thing for him. He got altitude sickness. He was like lying down the whole way up. He stayed in the med tent for 4 hours at Animas, and we thought he was done. Then he came back from the grave and went on to have a really good.
Mike.
Yeah, I know, right? And that was also a good lesson for me in how like you can turn your day around.
Yeah.
But it's just like this kind of crux, isn't it?
Yeah, a fun story for me from 2021. Francois was just ahead of me going up Handies when we were above tree line, and it started just pouring rain on us for like 30 minutes. And I could tell that Francois had nothing in the back of his pack, no jacket or anything, just a t-shirt. I had my jacket with me and I was like, this is it. The goat makes a critical mistake going up Handies. Like, this is the thing that's going to, serve me, and I'll eventually take advantage of this mistake. Of course, I never saw Francois again. But anyway, it is unpredictable. The rain can come at any point, but Handies is a good psychological marker. Once you get up over the top, it's like, okay, I'm over the highest point of the race course here today. Billy, any comments on the course so far? I don't know if there's anything you want to mention.
Not really, because I really haven't had an opportunity to explore that particular part of the course, nor Summit Handies, but I do recall seeing you at American Basin, hot on Francois's heels in 2021. I just think that, to Hilary's concern, the nutritional part of it, and especially at altitude, is like the biggest X factor. And I want to shout out Meredith Terranova, who graciously offered to work with Hilary and trying to figure that out. So she can do that attitude-wise, like climbing-wise. Like she thrives climbing, being in the mountains. I think she'll have an exceptional day if you could just like figure out that one little question mark.
The nutrition is king. And it's interesting too, like kind of looking at after Handies on the course, right? Like you drop down a little bit to Animas Forks, but then there's sort of this long climb up Campbell Road. And it's like you would run it under normal circumstances in a normal race. But I'm sort of like, how will I feel that point, right? Yeah. Like, will I want to run that? Can I run that? Like, is it better to reset and eat your way up it? Like, what would you do, Dylan?
You'd walk. You'll walk.
You walk camper. It. Camper comes after Ure.
Yeah. So Rye just pulled it back up. Okay. So maybe just to fast forward a little bit. So what our audience sees at the low point of the course is Ure, and then you climb up Camper Road to Virginia's Pass. That's the biggest, longest, and hardest climb of the day, you could call it. It's probably 3 hours for the almost 3 hours for the fastest people in the race, which means you're looking 5 or 6 hours for the back of the pack at least. But what makes this direction different, what a lot of the veterans say, is that going counterclockwise is harder because you run the ramps, or you climb the ramps and descend the walls. And what the veterans think is that it's better to ascend the walls, just hike steeply uphill, and then you have long stretches of runnable descents. Going the opposite direction, you have what you're describing, long, what should be runnable climbs, but because you're tired and at altitude, you end up hiking these like long stretches of runnable trails and then running down the ramps. So that's why a lot of people think that the clockwise direction is faster, or at least feels faster, even though the course records are pretty identical in both directions.
And not to mention, both of those sections are not very glamorous. It's just cheap roads. Occasionally, you'll probably get some like ATVs blowing by you, like spraying dust in your face. So you got to deal with that. And it's just like this, to throw it back to the OG trail running days, is like a very douchey grade.
Yeah.
The douche grade of just like, you should be running it, to your point. But at that point, everything feels hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the chance to check out Engineer Pass and like the Bear Creek area. That was a section that I've never actually gone on before. And I'm not sure whether it's better to see it in the daylight or not.
Harmony told me about this. You guys it was kind of spooky, or at least your pup got a little scared out there.
Well, it's just pretty narrow. And there's like 2 miles that are like scree, and it's narrow. Like it's maybe like 2.5, 3 feet in places, with a drop off of like 200 feet down to the canyon floor below you. And it's fine. It's like, if you stick to the wall, you're fine. Yeah. But if your head's already a little sort of like, it's just like, there's not a lot of margin for error. There's no safety nets, like literally. No safety nets up there.
Yeah. So maybe just wrapping up, Rye, if you could just pull the graphic up one more time. Personally, as somebody who's finished in this direction twice, that last stretch from Ouray to the finish, so I guess it's basically like the last 40 plus miles from the low point that our audience sees on the course profile to the end. You basically have 4 very, very difficult climbs to finish in 42 miles. So I don't know. It's just the type of race where you have to really meter your energy and effort, because the end is so hard that it's really important to have some energy there.
And then, not to take a little off ramp to a separate story, but I very distinctly, one of my most vivid memories was of you coming into Ouray. I forget which direction you were going that particular year, but you looked like, I don't know, like you just saw a ghost.
Dead. Like that was 2023. That was only 2 years ago.
Yeah. And you look like,
dead.
If you were a betting man, you were like, even if he continues, next aid station, he's tapping out.
Yeah.
And somehow, like, you persevered and pushed through. Maybe just as a little motivation, or, if Hilary ever encounters that wall that just, feels insurmountable. What got you through that low point? What was that low point, and what got you through that?
Yeah, so that was a bad year for me, for sure. And I posted about this yesterday, but my 2 races here at Hardrock, literally probably the best race of my career and objectively the worst race of my career. So it was 2 very different experiences going in the same direction. So I was 9 hours slower in 2023. If that, that's a good, objective, measurable example of how things were much worse in 2023. But honestly, I was contemplating quitting well before Ouray. Ended up continuing on. But the thing that I think is important is to know that the cutoffs here are pretty generous, right? So I took a 3-hour nap at Chapman, and I went into that aid station fully believing I was going to take a little nap and catch a lift back to Silverton. I was out of the race. But the good people there just, hey, you got like 20 hours to go 18 miles. Like, why would you drop out of the race? Just took a 3-hour nap. You need a coffee? Cool. You need a donut? Cool. Anything else we can do for you? And then it was like, okay, I don't really have an excuse to quit anymore. I guess I should probably go.
What were you going through? Like, what was it?
I was just not fit enough. And I raced, I raced as if I was in the same, I was the same
all
athlete.
your matches in somewhere in the first half.
Yeah. And I didn't race smart. Like in 2021, I came in very fit, very focused. In 2023, I didn't, but I still raced in the same way as I did when I was fit. So naturally I blew up. It was as simple as that. But I was really proud I got it done. And, I think, between those 2 experiences, probably 2023 was more memorable, more rewarding. So I think, like, to me, the real lesson of that is, like, you can take really long resets and give yourself an opportunity to come back, like Mike did at Animas Forks. There's that great story of Jamel Curry taking a 4-hour nap at Animas Forks. At that point, it was Grouse Gulch. I remember he ate like 4 mashed potato burritos, and then he ran the second half of the race, second fastest. The only person to run it faster than him was Sebastian Chagnon, who won the race that year. So that's my lesson: is you can reset at Hardrock.
Jameel's such a legend. Yeah. I remember that. Oh my god.
It's, yeah, just sort of on that point before we move on. I think it's really interesting. I mean, we've all been in sport for a while. You have these races that are like the high point of your career, and then you have these moments that are so humbling. Yeah. And it really does make you think about what you love about the sport when your ego is just destroyed out there. Yeah. And I think Hardrock is such, like, that's one of the beautiful things about this race is finishing is truly like the objective. And you might have other goals, but just sort of being able to let go of that and like you did, just sort of like accept the day. It can be really like you learn a lot from that, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But suffice it to say, as we move on from talking about the course, it's a freaking monster. It is such a huge and hard course, 100 miles, roughly 33,000 feet of climbing, an average elevation of 11,000 feet. And it really like gives you nowhere to hide. Talking about the conditions now, Ryan's going to pull up another graphic here, and we only need to spend a minute on this. But of course, mountain weather is unpredictable. It's right now calling for a high of 73 on Friday, 72 on Saturday. Slight chance of rain. You can probably expect to have a shower. We're moving into monsoon season here in Colorado, but not a lot of snow on the course. To me, it seems like a pretty good day as somebody who's going to be out there. What are you packing, and how are you thinking about the conditions in general?
I mean, I think the thing about this course, like the weather really is such a game changer. I've certainly been out there and seen these thunderstorms roll in and be very drastically different than forecasted, and it could just sit on one peak and you happen to be on the peak that it's sitting on. A couple weeks ago, I was up in Vancouver and it was snowing and hailing on me in the mountains. And that reminded me of how cold you can get so fast. And that was a good reminder because, living in SoCal, it's always warm and sunny. But so being down here and just like feeling the variable weather, I mean, even today during the women's panel, it was sprinkling a little bit for a few minutes and it's just always sort of there. So just sort of managing gear because you got to be able to get it on and like not get hypothermic. And even overnight, like it gets pretty cold here still. There's huge temperature swings. And so I've been thinking about like, okay, do I need to put bottoms on? Am I good with just like core layers and sort of, is that enough? Like just sort of all the different scenarios that could play out. I mean, Hardrock doesn't have a mandatory kit either, which is interesting. And I think I love it because it is sort of graduate level. Everything's sort of like, you guys should know what you need out there, but there's no sort of like, here, we're going to tell you what you need for this section. So it really is sort of up to you to know and to be paying attention, or if you have crew, to have them paying attention to the forecast.
Yeah, so it's sort of like an average year. The one thing that I think is going to be cool, and Billy might appreciate this as somebody who's probably going to be up through a whole night, it's going to be a full moon, buddy. And the racers are going to definitely enjoy it. I talked to Germain Grangier. He's like, yeah, I'm not wearing a headlamp. Too much weight. I got the full moon. Of course, he was joking, but
I was like, oh my God, if that's too much weight.
But if it's a clear night, I mean, that's going to be a special experience.
Yeah, it'll be beautiful out there. Yeah, I'm excited for that. All the craziness comes out with the full moon, isn't that what they say?
Yeah, I guess so. All right. So anyway, that's sort of like the course and the conditions that people are going to be dealing with out there today. We'll talk about the field now for a minute, but before we do, a big thank you again to the North Face for sponsoring our coverage. The North Face is one of the partners of Hardrock here, and Zach Miller we just had in studio here today. It's great to see him out on the course, somebody who Billy's made great pieces of media around. He's going to be rocking this Vective Endurus 4 Super Foam TPU plate. Seth Ruling wore it to his sub 15-hour finish at Western States just a couple of weeks ago. So check out the link in the show notes to check out this Vective Pro or Vective Endurus 4 sitting behind me here. Big thank you to the North Face. All right, so talking about the race itself here, one of the things I think would be fun, maybe tossing to you first, Billy, is like, this is kind of the palate cleanser between Western States and UTMB, which are always like deep and dense with talent. And Hardrock's always different in that it does have world-class competition, but it's not quite as deep. So I don't know. I feel like that might be an interesting thing just to talk about briefly before we go into some of the specific characters. I don't know to what degree you're paying attention or, toggling your fantasy team or whatever. But.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say I've never played fantasy Freetrail, but for a pair of those sweet Vectives, I might have to make a change there. Yeah, I do think, I'm not super well versed as media guys like you are on the talent, but I definitely have, personal rooting interests. and the aforementioned Zach Miller as somebody who I just think is such a, we talk about the soul and the heart of the sport, just one of the truly good guys.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, literally the guy served up pasta for all the Cunningham cultures, probably, what was it, like 10? I mean, even Browning got up and had to sample some of the...
He ate a carb?
No. He had just a sauce. he had a bowl of sauce. By the way, got to get Browning on here and just like have him regale you with old Hardrock stories, because man, that guy can tell stories. But yeah, so, and I do think, speaking of the aforementioned Browning, he didn't even know this anecdote, but we asked him who the last American male to win this race was, and he was scratching his chin, going like,
himself.
Yeah, it was Browning. So I'm sorry, I love all the participants. Don't get me wrong, but when all things being equal, I will root for the American, and my heart and my soul is rooting for Zach Miller to fend off the Frenchman in this race. But that's just my, I don't know, patriotism, for lack of a better word. But that being said, I'm also really excited to see Katie Schide just like do her thing, put on a clinic. Not to discount any of the other ladies in the field, but I think it's not going too far out on a limb to say that it is her race to lose. And I think Katie will... She's lived out here. She's clearly training out. How long has she been out here? Like 3
weeks. Yeah. Between Leadville, Uray, and Silverton.
Yeah. I mean, so she's doing her homework. She's putting in the work. So, yeah, Katie's another person I'm rooting for. But I just hope, it's very top heavy. Mm-hmm. But just being out, to your point earlier, just the sheer difficulty of this course, when it takes you 3 hours to do an 8-mile run. Hopefully the audience at home who've never really set foot here can appreciate just how difficult the terrain is. And then to like 50x that in one push is just like mind boggling sometimes.
Just to kind of speak to what you were saying about the depth of the field just in general, it's interesting, right? Because we're just came from the women's panel, and you've got Katie, you've got Katerina, you've got Manon, you've got sort of these like leaders that we know are going to be the front of the pack, and same with the guys. But as someone that's been in the lottery for, 8 or 9 years, it's an interesting thing, because I do feel like everybody that is here has had to do a hard 100-miler to qualify. There is a sort of like minimum standard of, like level. And I think the respect people have for this course, it's, because there's no golden ticket system, it's sort of different, right? Like you got Dale's picks, and I know those are a lot more sort of advertised now, and we know who his picks are, and you get sort of 3 or 4 top athletes. But what really struck me today, just hearing the women, was how many accomplished women there are that I've never heard of before. And there's FKT holders, and there are women that are crushing. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, and they're coming from Spain, and they're coming from like these places in the world, and maybe some of them have never raced in the US before. And so there's sort of this wild card factor with Hardrock. I don't think you can play the fantasy Freetrail, but I think there's some people that are just really good mountain athletes that maybe don't race as often, that are almost purists that are out here. And that's sort of exciting to me, because I'm like looking around being like, who is it that's going to emerge out of this? Because Hardrock can just take no prisoners, Yeah,
absolutely. So Billy, I think one thing that you'll appreciate, how is we talked about this with Katie Schide today. And I think, to drive your point home, I think, it's not controversial to say Katie comes in with, more momentum than maybe anybody in the sport right now, the defending trail runner of the year, ultra runner of the year.
And if Vegas drew up odds for ultra running, she would be, she would be a clear favorite.
So in tennis and golf, and we talked about this with Katie today, there's the phenomenon of the career Grand Slam. So the example I gave was Rory McIlroy won the Masters this spring, which gave him the career Grand Slam, all 4 of the PGA majors. And in 100-mile trail running, you have Western States, UTMB, Diagonal des Fous, and Hardrock. There's 2 people who have won all 4, Courtney Dauwalter, Kilian Jornet. Katie has her chance to be the 3rd person to ever win the what I am calling the career Grand Slam of 100 miles. This is a totally unofficial, it only exists in Dylan Bowman's brain, distinction. But I think a cool storyline going into the weekend.
3 of those are, definitely more mountainous, but I do think like to be able to run a race like Western States and run it really well, it just shows the depth and all the different weapons in their respective quivers. And yeah, I'm just like amazed by what she's done in her still relatively young career. And you know, like, honestly, I don't care where. It could be in one of those 4 races. It could be in a completely like backyard, 100-mile race. I just want to see Katie and Courtney stop flirting and just like pick a race that they can just throw down together too. Just as a fan of the sport and fan of both of them, want to see that happen. But yeah, what a career Katie's had.
It leads me to actually want to talk about the course record. So Courtney has won the last 3 straight Hardrocks. 26:11 from last year was her fastest time ever, but going counterclockwise, it's 26:14. So almost identical time for Courtney Dauwalter. My fastest time here is 22:45. So my feeling is that both Courtney and Katie have the potential to go sub 24, which means to our audience that there is, I think, a big margin to take off even Courtney's 3 straight times here. I think Courtney would be the first to say that she hasn't had like her perfect day at Hardrock, even though she's won 3 times and has the course record. So anyway, I just think that maybe is a thing that audience should be paying attention to, is like, could the course record go down, and maybe go down big on the women's side this year? Because I think both of them have the potential to go much, much faster.
Well, that's where I think it comes down to nutrition. Like, I really do think it's an eating competition to get to the finish of Hardrock. And I remember a few years ago, I think it was 23, when Courtney ran it in her trifecta of, Western States UTMB Hardrock year, and seeing her throwing up mashed potatoes in Ouray and just being like, oh my God, she lives in Leadville. She lives at altitude, and Courtney is still struggling to get food in. I think that moment is like seared into my brain. Mm-hmm. And I know Katie's got all the tools in her toolkit as far as nutrition, but I truly think that is the piece that kind of will bring that time down. Like you said, that's where there's time on the table. Because if you can eat during this race and keep that food in, then I think you're right. I think there's still some time to be made there.
Yeah. So just a couple of other names Hilary just mentioned, but Katarina Hartmuth is back for the 2nd year in a row, 3rd place here last year. I think she would also say that she has a lot of room to improve. Also won Tour de France last year, so a really tough mountain athlete from Germany. Amanda Bohard, 3rd place at the World Championship. She won Diagonal des Fous last year, twice has won Madeira. Probably the least talked about favorite so far, because I think this is her first time racing in the U.S. Stephanie Case is back. She's finished 2nd in the past. And like you said, there's just a bunch of these really tough mountain women, yourself included, who will be having...
Yeah, it'll be me and Katie just neck and neck out there, Dylan.
Neck and neck. Anyway, so maybe spending a few minutes on the men before we kind of hear more about your guys' plans for race day. It's kind of like the French versus Zach at this point. I feel like the French guys are fully embracing it and almost trolling Zach a little bit. And
we all French Canadian, right? So,
no, he's actually French.
He is French. Okay,
he's actually French.
Canadians adopted him.
Yeah. But I think we all know the story of what happened to Zach last year. He comes in, he said today he feels better than he did last year. So that's good news, given the fact that we haven't seen him race in what feels like a very long time. And then the French contingent of the defending champion, Ludovic Pommeret, who's on the cusp of his 50th birthday later this month.
I know. Shout out Ludo. Like that's, that's, I'm kind of like almost split as a middle-aged guy. Like, God, it would be awesome to see somebody like pushing 50, like showing the potential of what's possible. But
can we just mention, like, we were out at Grand Swamp Pass yesterday. I was out with Kim and Topher Gaylord and Emily Hawgood just doing a last minute preview. And who comes cruising by us at top speed is Ludo with Jim Walmsley right behind him, and they're double poling their way up Grant Swamp Pass. And Jim was so out of breath, he just fist bumped us on the way by. He didn't even say hi. And they were blazing. And I don't think they blazed down because we didn't see them, but my jaw was on the floor. I was like, we're 3 days out from Hardrock, and freaking Ludo is just cruising at top speed up to the top of the pass. So I don't know, man. That guy is in incredible shape right now. It's really cool.
He's so impressive. What I think is just so cool is how much he like still clearly loves doing it. And I feel like that's probably the number one thing that contributes to him being able to still compete at such a high level is just like he's not sick of it yet. And
do you see him at the finish line at UTMB?
Yeah, I mean, he's like he's just the best. Like he's hilarious. He was just in here for an interview, and he's got this infectious kind of jovial, I don't know, silliness to him that I don't know, probably has performance benefits too. But so the French contingent, Ludo, Mathieu, Germain have all been UTMB podium finishers in the past. So that's going to be a fun story to follow. And it seems like maybe working as a team to try and shoot Zach Miller off the back. But anyway,
Debo, do you ever share your top 5 picks? Do you give that out? And
I can. I don't have it up in front of me, but I would be more than happy to. It was some combination of those 4. Plus, this guy David Ayala is interesting. I think he's won the Bear a couple of times. One of these names who, has been very strong racing around, kind of like the Mountain West in the U.S. for the last 10 years, but just never really made a push to try and be like one of the big dogs. Probably has been in the lottery forever and is finally getting his shot. Kyle Curtin also from Durango, I think is going to be interesting. He's got the FKT on the Colorado Trail, which he got last year. So, and that, look what we've seen with Tara Dower and Stringbean. You can actually, potentially those huge efforts, once you recover, springboard you to the next phase of fitness. So I think the men's race is actually really interesting this year.
Who do you think is going to be first over handies?
Katie?
Yeah, right?
No, I would guess Mathieu and Germain will be together at the front, and I doubt Zach will let them go. And then I bet Ludo will be somewhere trying to race, a little bit more intelligently. But he was in front early last year. He ended up winning by 3 hours. He's the course record holder. Even at 49 years old, it's hard not to see. I bet the 4 of them run together for a long stretch.
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking. It's going to be a pack because none of them want to let the other one go.
Yeah. So the course record time is from last year going clockwise. Ludovic Pommeret, 21:33. Course record time counterclockwise was Francois from 2021, 21:45. So roughly a 12-minute difference. So they keep track of both, whether it the directional course record versus the overall course record. I would say it's safe to say that both are in play here this weekend, given the fact that it is sort of like an average snow year and a moderate weather year. So not much more to really say. I mean, obviously there's a lot of great and strong athletes in the field that are going to be taking on this beast of a course, and we wish everybody luck. And we can't close before we do a little, pre-race interview with Hilary Yang and, who I'm expecting to be crew chief, Billy Yang here. So.
Oh, he is not my crew chief.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
All right, we'll explain. I'm sure the audience is interested.
No, Billy knows I love him, and math is not his strong suit, and organization is also maybe not his strong suit. So, no, I've got good friends, Kevin and Natalie, that are my crew chiefs, and they are masters of the spreadsheets. As soon as I asked them, I got this 5-tab spreadsheet with a drop-down menu of all the previous women and pace charts, and I was like, oh my god. So yeah, I'm in good hands there.
That famous scene in Unbreakable when they're laying out Killian's kid, and then they pan over to Joe Grant, and he's like, this one Anton has. It's just kind of my vibe. I'm I'll figure it out as I go along. But yeah, Hilary definitely put her, the critical nutritional component into the right hands. I am not the man for that job. Yeah. I'll
so
just be pointing
how
camera.
are you thinking about your race though? In terms of just strategy and goals, if this has been 9-10 years in the making for you, that's a big deal, and you have to approach it with a certain level of not only respect, but celebration, right?
Yeah, it does feel like that. And, when I got into the lottery in December, it was probably the least fit that I've been in a long time. And I was not planning on running or racing at all this year. I had some health stuff going on. I was actually at home. I wasn't even at the Western States lottery when Billy and Corinne were calling me you got in. And it was the first year that I didn't actually watch it because I was I give up. It's been so many years. It's not going to be this year. And so just I think the last 6 months of wrapping my head around this race and what it means to me and how much I wanted has been really interesting, because it's also coincided with probably my like busiest career year, like really important projects. And I've had to carve out that time. Like I've just had to will that time into my schedule. And I've been doing like 3:30 in the morning wake ups to get long runs in, 6 hours after we get off a plane from something, 105-degree days in LA, you know, getting up with Billy at 4 a.m. and doing water stashes. And it's just been like a really creative training block, I would say. I didn't have a coach. I stopped using a coach a few years ago because I would drive them crazy with my travel schedule. Yeah. So we actually put it into ChatGPT to give us a basic like training structure. And then we just sort of went with our gut and built up from there. So I can say that I'm really proud of my training, and I don't think it's perfect. And I would have loved to have been out here for like the last 2 months. Like, I would have, in my dream world, when you get into Hardrock, you just move out here, you know? Yeah. But given everything going on, I really feel like we've thrown our hearts and souls into just like being as ready as possible. And I mean, I ran a 50-miler in Malibu Canyon a few weeks ago as a training run. And like, that is about as far as you can get from Hardrock terrain. Yeah. But it's also like, this is the best I've got. Let's just make the most of it and like practice my nutrition. And, you know, like, I just think it is a celebration, and it's the culmination of a lot of years of trying to get into this race. It's the culmination of 4 really hard mountain hundreds that I did to qualify: Fat Dog, Cascade Crest, High Lonesome, which was my version of your 2023 race out here. I was barely an hour ahead of the cutoff, and it was a very humbling day for me. You know, I really had to think about why I wanted it. And a big reason of why I finished was the Hardrock qualifier. And then I Am Tough was my last one. Yeah. And so I think when I step back and I look at that, I just think, how lucky am I to be able to do this? And in this incredible community, like, it really is grounding. It feels like such a cool group of humans. And I have so much respect for these mountains. And it feels like a celebration of 10 years of ultra running for me. And it's a chapter of my life too. Like, I'm 36 now. Like, it's all these different life things are sort of hitting me, and it's sort of like, wow, like, look at what I've learned. Yeah. And I almost wouldn't want to have it earlier. I probably would have done better if I'd gotten in 4 years ago. I was certainly fitter, but mentally and just like humanly, I think I'm just really, truly grateful.
So beautiful. Thank you for saying that. And now I'm realizing that my story is kind of similar. It took me 10 years to get in, and I got in when I was 35 for the first time. And it took a lot of dedication. And it was, like I said, maybe the greatest single day of running I've ever had. Billy, maybe you could share a little bit from your perspective about Hilary's commitment coming into race day here.
She was definitely committed, far more committed than I've ever seen her, about making sure that she was making room for it, sliding certain things around in her schedule, and not wavering at all. And I tried to hang with her as best as I could. I tried to be a good training partner, but there were definitely times when I was definitely not feeling it. And Hilary went out and laced up anyway and went. So I think you're totally right, babe. And that was really beautifully said. This is going to be a 100-mile victory lap, if you will, around the San Juans. That will be a culmination and a celebration of not only just your fitness journey, but the people that you love, your support crew that help get you there. She has like 18 pacers. I don't even know how that's possible, but she wanted to make sure everyone felt included and part of that journey. And I think it's going to be an amazing culmination. You know, no matter how you do, I think it's going to be an amazing culmination of this place that, you know, means so much to the both of us.
Yeah, I think, I really feel that.
Sorry, we're getting a little sappy here.
I know, we totally are.
Oh my gosh. Perfect.
No, but I think a lot of people can relate. Like, it's very cool if you're able to get in and race and be competitive. I consider myself an excellent sub-elite athlete. You know, I'm like right in that tier of I care and I try to be competitive, but I also know that I'm not able to put in the time and work, and probably don't have the natural talent to be up at the top. But I care, and it's like a huge deal for me in my career as an ultra runner to be here. And I think that's just something that you have to have if you want to get to the start line of Hardrock. But yeah, being out here, having all the people in my corner, like, it really is, it's everything, right? Like, it's the whole journey. Got Emily Hoggett pacing me for the last last 18 miles fresh off of Western
No
States.
big deal.
No big deal. And she's still going to kick my butt, even with all of that in her legs. But just like every single person that's out here, my friend Megan drove down from Canada to be part of it, like all these people.
Yeah.
And I don't take that for granted. I don't take anyone's time for granted. I think, these races are special, for everyone that's been trying to get into, whether it's Western States or it's Hardrock or any of these races. When you get the chance, these are the moments that are worth it, and it matters. It's like something you'll be proud of. And just like for me, I feel like, it's been messy. It's been, like my training has just felt all over the place. But when I step back and look at it, I'm like, I've done my very best. And that's like,
amazing.
that's all I got, man. I have 1 week at altitude. We've been camping up high, trying to do a crash course.
Yeah.
It's just going to do it.
So then, Billy, what's your role, buddy? I mean, can we expect there to be an amazing film coming out of this? Yes. All right.
Yeah. I'll be following her around the mountains with a camera, and I will try to be as involved as I possibly can without being too involved, and making sure those lines are clearly divided. But I'm so proud of her, and for everyone, all 130 plus people who are daring to toe the line of this race, like we mentioned before, is just such a beast, such a graduate level, like doctorate level, like course of just dealing with, altitude, and combine that with the steepness and the an added level of ruggedness that I think the French and Italian Alps don't quite have.
Yeah.
You truly feel like you're alone out there at times without, a whole bunch of people like click-clacking with their poles. And I think that's what some of that draw is to people like Killian, like you get this experience, and they call it a run for a reason. And I think as long as we just kind of like get into that mindset of gratitude and just an appreciation for, not only this beautiful place we get to run around, but just an appreciation of, your fitness and your time and place to be able to do this. It's going to be such a magical journey. I can't wait to capture it and be a part of it.
I can't wait to watch the video, buddy. I can't wait to watch the film. Okay, well, as we wind down, are we allowed to spend a minute on Mammoth 200, right, Hilary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, because Ryan and I were in Mammoth the day after Western States, right? 2 days after, Ryan ran the first 50K of the Mammoth 200 course.
You never stop, Ryan.
Yeah.
Seriously. Camera in hand.
So, but I don't know. I mean, this is going to be the hottest new 200 miler on the block, and it seems like you're the RD. Maybe just say a couple words about the Mammoth 200 before we sign off here this afternoon.
Yeah, it's sort of funny. I forgot I had a call with Mammoth Mountain right before the women's panel, so I was at the back doing a video call with them about everything Mammoth related. So I definitely feel like I'm wearing multiple hats right now, but it's shaping up to be so exciting. And we're coming in hot. We're the first 200 in the U.S. to have prize money, so a little challenge out there. But really, Tim and I want to value everyone who's coming out and putting their efforts into this thing. So that felt important to us. And yeah, we've got Mountain Outposts that are going to produce a live stream for it. Again, as a storyteller, we're coming in I think that's the thing too. I've been involved with 15 of these 200 milers. Tim's done Trail Fest for the last 4 years. We're not coming in at an entry level, and we want to provide a world-class experience. And I think it's just a cool experience to see the Eastern Sierra. It's this beautiful loop.
It is such an insane loop.
Yeah.
And it's basically a perfect loop.
Well, some would say it looks like a llama or an ostrich, depending on how you look at the profile. But yes, it's one continuous loop around the whole caldera, going through the Eastern Sierra and the Glass Mountains, which are nobody goes there. It's really cool to get to explore stuff like that. So yeah, I'm excited because I love these longer adventures. And I think Hardrock, the Mammoth, they're all part of this sort of ethos of just be out in the mountains and maybe unplug and experience something. And you come out of these things on the other side, hopefully changed in a positive way, but they're sort of transformative journeys. And I think that's really cool to be part of.
So Western States and the big push there. Now you have to run Hardrock. And then you just have to race direct to 200 miler.
Hat off, hat on.
Couple of months. Okay. Any closing comments from the panel here as we wind down?
I was just thinking as we were talking, just going back to why we do this and your race in 2023 being arguably one of the hardest ones of your career. finishes I've had that have brought me to my knees. Billy's had that as well. Just thinking of like why we're out here running these things. And, you know, like I have a lot of respect for people that finish no matter what the circumstances. And I know Hardrock is one of those races that people finish no matter the circumstances if they can. And to me, that's just really exciting. And I hope we see that. I hope we see people dig really deep out there. And that's in and of itself an accomplishment and something to be proud of, right?
Yeah. Billy, closing comments from you?
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, as you're saying that, I just have flashbacks to I think it was 17, Killian, that's one arm, like
iconic.
Just like, you know, even somebody like Killian can fall and have like this incredible obstacle, but found a way to get it done. Just underscores the wild and toughness of not only the course, but the people, like my incredible partner here and all the other people that are going to toe the line and make the effort. And I'm just grateful to be a part of it for another year. Like we missed, you know, we got this incredible opportunity to go to like UK and Scotland last year, but definitely a piece of us was left here in Silverton. So to come back and have a real driving purpose of getting you to complete that loop is going to be such an amazing culmination of everything.
A beautiful place to end. And just closing note for me, I've been saying to Ryan and Harmony since we've been here, like I actually have enjoyed running for what feels like the first time in ages again. So watch out, everybody.
Yeah, put your name back in, man.
Dilly Trails is back here, okay? So
or put in for the Mammoth, man.
Yeah, maybe the Mammoth. Yeah, right. Okay, in closing here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Go play fantasy, fantasy.freetrail.com. Pick 5 deep for a chance to win some hot new shoes from the North Face. We did athlete interviews today with Ludo, Zach, Katie, Germain tomorrow, and Hilary, obviously. Tomorrow we're talking to Stephanie Case, Mathieu Blanchard. So keep a lookout for those interviews. And then like we did last year, 5 p.m. on Saturday, we're doing a live post-race show from the bar at the Wyman Hotel. So come join us in person if you're going to be in Silverton, and we'll do a live post-race show there, and we'll have a nice little rage and after party. Last year, in fact, we'll all remember this, Courtney DeWalter's mom did a hula hoop at the Wyman Hotel after party. So I don't think she'll be there this year, but that's the type of energy we're going to bring to the after party. We hope to see you there. Finally, big thank you to the team behind the scenes. Harmo, Ride Guy, you're the best. On behalf of Billy Yang, Hilary Yang, I'm Debo. Good luck, Hard Rockers.